Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of Can We Discuss with Yara and Petra.
On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the labor of connections as well as neural nostalgia. And this is off of the basis of all of the Coachella performances that we've seen, particularly the Justin Bieber performance. I have to say, I
Yes.
wasn't a believer even when Justin Bieber was a thing when we were younger. But on Sunday, watching all of the Coachella, watching his set in Coachella, I was a believer. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm a believer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone is sitting there,
It's
they're like, what is this?
yeah, I think everyone was just really like feeling themselves this week, and like the nostalgia was hitting so hard this weekend. All of like my group chats were going off, and I
Yeah.
think it's such a beautiful thing that like connects us all. وحتى انت Yana, you just said, I mean, you weren't really like into Justin Bieber when he was a thing, but
Yeah.
additional, it still reminds you of those times. It brings out like certain emotions in you, which I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, we learned that it's called neural nostalgia, which is like a real thing.
It's a real thing and a biological thing, and your brain is connecting you to those
Yeah,
parts of music, skills, memories, rituals that you had, particularly during the ages of 12 and 22. So I think it lines up
yeah,
very well with our age group that we all felt very nostalgic. But I also felt like very proud of Justin Bieber, for doing what he did. Um,
yeah,
Honestly, he sold his rights to his old label, to the X label, and he went on stage. He performed all of his old songs in a way that doesn't mean he needs to pay back anything to his old label. Very creative and very, very on brand for him because he started off as a YouTube kid. And this is just all
yeah,
of the stuff that I'm learning this weekend, right? So
yeah,
on Sunday
yeah. You're like,
specifically.
now I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Anna, I kind of felt very like emotional knowing Justin's story in the sense of like just
Yeah.
everything that he went through. And then it just made me feel a certain kind of way of like him, singing to his younger self and just thinking through like, fuck, like how much that kid was going through at that time. And like no one really had
No,
any
no
idea
one
like the
knew. Yeah.
extent. So it's a great like mirror into all of our realities, right? And something that's really cool is like a lot of people do like inner child therapy, and I think it's a very interesting thing. Like that's a completely different topic, but I think it's
Yeah.
very like therapeutic almost to speak to your younger self or like to tap into your younger self. But for today's topic, today's discussion, we wanted to more talk about like the invisible labor of connections and how like neural nostalgia like kind of
Plays into it.
removes that, yeah, plays into it and removes some of that effort when it comes to certain relationships that you have
Yeah.
with specific people that you had during like your formative years.
Yeah.
um let's talk about like what is like the invisible labor of connection, like really like what defines that, because even for us as sisters, that's there, like there's always an
Of course, it's there with
invisible
every
labor that's
relationship.
happening. Yeah, yeah,
I think one thing that to me is very prominent when you're talking about the invisible labor of connections, especially in today's day and age where a lot of us are scattered across the world. People we grew up with are all over. We're not really all in the same place. One family, like take our family, it's just our nuclear family. We're in 4 different countries. So there
yeah,
still is, regardless of how much love there is and how much time you want to spend together, life gets in the way, even when it comes to the closest relationships. And you still
yeah,
need to make that effort to make sure that the connection is always there. You're building that connection. You still are building some sort of memories for yourself. Um, but I think with a lot of these relationships, family and friends, the neural nostalgia really does, because you have that basis, that those memories, the really fond memories of your childhood with these people or your past with these people, you try to make the effort to actually be there. And that's the invisible labor. It's not the
Yeah.
labor of like you putting in the time to have a conversation or to have a call with one of your friends that you haven't spoken to in I don't know how much time, right? I
Yeah.
think that's a very, very big thing. And we
Yeah.
see it in our everyday lives. We see it
Yeah.
regardless of where you are in life or how old you are, simply because this is
Yeah.
just the reality that a lot of us live in today.
Yeah. I think it's cool as well because like the nostalgia piece of it kind of will forever bond us. Like there's something that's going to forever
Yeah.
bond us. And I think that's what's really beautiful is like we have so many different groups, like even the way that we grew up, where we were in elementary school in one place and then we were in high school in a different place, which a lot of people have that experience and can relate to it as well.
Yeah.
But we're always like, I always want to make sure that I'm still keeping those connections alive. And it's not to say it's like with every single person, but there's certain people who have like influenced your life and will forever be a part of it. And I think the nostalgia piece plays into alleviating some of that stress of like how can we keep in touch, because if it's a quick meme about like a Friends episode, or if
Yeah.
it's seeing old Eminem songs like pop up, or now Justin Bieber, like all of these will like are literally like small triggers to help keep that relationship alive. And I think the invisible labor of love is really that, like it's a labor of connection, it's a labor of love, right? It
Yeah.
tells you that I care about you and I want to make an effort. And I think in your 30s, like when you grow up, it becomes a lot harder when you build new relationships to kind of
To
make
have that
sure
base.
that, yeah, it's you there's still beautiful friendships that you
Of course.
create,
Yeah.
obviously, and they're very real and you can't do your adult life without them. But I just think it's like a different feeling when it comes to people who have seen a raw version of yourself, like an untouched version,
Yeah.
which I also want to talk about is kind of like recently I've been thinking a lot about like who was Petra before, like we were, obviously the world always influences you and your environment always influences you, but I think in today's world it's like multiplied times 1,000 because of
Because
social
it
media,
starts
because of,
much earlier, right?
and it starts so much earlier, right? Yeah, 100%. Like nahna, when we were 10, 9, we are not on social media, we're not seeing what's happening around the world, like we're just being ourselves. And I find myself like yearning, is that the word? I really want to
Yeah.
gravitate back into who old Petra was. She was so unapologetic, unbothered by everyone, would say whatever is on her mind. And I still have that version of myself, but a little bit more toned down, So sometimes, Heike, I find myself also like, even when I'm in a conversation with you or when I'm in a conversation with Ghalia or like the Golden Girls chats, like I feel myself morphing back into old Petra, and I miss
Yeah.
that. Like I want that. So I feel like I've seen that as a common theme more recently on social media, where people are really like tapping into nostalgic moments for themselves and going back to like old movies or old shows. And it's just very interesting, I think, perspective to see that
That's
happening
also
in the modern world.
another invisible labor of connection, and that's your
Yeah.
connection to yourself as well, right? Which is obviously super, super important. We've
Mm,
always talked about how important it is to be self-aware, to acknowledge the things that you want for yourself, etc. And I think
yeah.
when we're having these conversations, right, it always brings me back to our conversation about friendships in adulthood. And that's
Yeah.
we've already done an episode about that. I just
Yeah.
think when you have that, because you have that additional connection to the people or nostalgia or the memories tying it all together, it's always as if when you see that person that you haven't seen for, I don't know, years, because you have that base, you will always have that connection, right? And it's so
Yeah.
important and it's so nice because, like you said, it's that little piece of you or part of you that always is always going to be there. It's always there but it's not that you've
Yeah.
suppressed it. It's just that life has morphed you into a different version of that person or that individual.
Yeah.
And that
100%.
that to me is also a very big thing, right?
Yeah.
It's also nostalgia, but in a different kind of way. And that labor of love,
Yeah.
invisible labor of love that you give yourself, it's bigger than a lot of us, right? Some people don't even think about it. They just move on. They're like, yeah, but that was an old part of me, or that's not who I am anymore. I've grown, and
Mm,
that's fine.
yeah.
But that's still something that ties back to that younger self. Now, back to the invisible labor of connections, right? We feel it in our everyday because we're scattered across the world, but also because we yearn for these connections, these friendships, these relationships, the type that is very innocent and that's not based
Mm,
on life's difficulties or life's advantages. يعني حدا بيكون عم يتمصلح مع حدا so عنده هالفriendship معه. It's built on
it's not based on
genuine.
a need. It's based on, yeah. Yeah. Like
Exactly. It's
genuine
based
connection.
on genuine connections, genuine friendships, genuine
Yeah.
relationships as a whole, right? So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not to say that's not available in our friendships that we have as adults.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just to say that even as adults, even with people that live around us today, we still have to make an effort.
Exactly. I think it's even with my friends in today's world, my new friends, it's interesting you said it's about that innocent connection, because even with them, I always ask them, how was your college life? Who was,
Yeah.
for example, Ipek when she was 14? What did you guys
Yeah.
used to do? Like, try to really understand how they lived their lives at an age that was very formative, and
Yeah.
trying to understand, would we have been friends? How would we have related to each other at that age? Just all of these things I think is really interesting for sure. But also recognizing that not everyone has that same experience. Not everyone wants to remember their past. And sometimes people think, like, oh, if we are so hooked on the past and keep thinking about our past, are we hindering our growth for the future? And it's like a double-edged sword, where I know some people are very much like, it took me so long to get out of my past and get to where I am
I
today.
want to
I don't want to
relive it.
think about it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I think to me, it's when you're speaking to friends or when you have friends from your childhood and you speak to them as an adult and you're still very close to them as an adult, the thing that resonates with me or I carry with me most is that these people will always know who Yara is at her core. I'll never have to explain myself, right? It's always going to
yes.
be, they know who I am. I don't have to explain myself. I don't need to tell them where I'm coming from. I don't need to explain who I am as an individual or my intentions or my thoughts, because sometimes really they just know your thoughts just by
Oh,
looking at you. And it's
yeah,
it's crazy, right? You do build these as adults as well. It's not to say we don't have these as adults. However, even in adult friendships, you have those nostalgic feelings about, for example, you've known somebody for 10 years as an adult, you still have nostalgic feelings about maybe before you guys got married, the relationship that you had together when you were just
yeah,
randomly, spontaneously going out, right? It's not to say that this is
yeah,
only with childhood friends. No, it's to
yeah,
say that regardless of age, you're always going to have that. Like even today, if you look at mom and dad and the way that they discuss, even when we were kids, right? Like their lives when we
yeah,
were kids, they were adults
yeah,
and they met a lot of our closest family friends when they were adults, and they still
yeah,
talk about it with so much love, with so much nostalgia. But that also
yeah,
has something to do with our brain always remembering the good over the bad,
yeah,
because it's a mechanism to protect us, right, and to protect our
yeah,
psyche. So I think
yeah,
that's something that's really cool. We need to probably
yeah.
bring on a psychiatrist to discuss this one day.
We totally should. I think it's really, يعني عن جد, because it can go in a lot of different directions, but I think definitely, like, it's such a beautiful thing, like human connection, and I think being able to continuously, like, build on that. And like you said, when you are in a space where you're in a place that people really understand your intentions, and that really happens over time. And like seeing a person through a lot is what's really going to make you understand what this person's true intentions are.
Yeah.
And our mom used to always like raised us by like, as long as you have good intentions, that's all that matters. Like your friends will
Yeah.
know what your real friends will know what your intentions are in a situation. And I think for me as an adult, like when we moved here, that was very hard because my whole life, if I look back, I was surrounded by a lot of the same people, by people
Yeah.
who saw me before I hit puberty, even, you know what I mean? Like people who've seen me at my rawest moments. And I never had to explain who Petra was. And then now here I was trying to explain to these new people in a new space who
Yeah.
Petra was. And it's very hard. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. So, yeah, I definitely used to crave, I just want to be able to be in a room where no one fucking questions my tone. When I say something, they know what I mean. I don't have to sit there and explain. So I think
Yeah.
it's that safety that we look for, that comfort, that
100%. Yeah.
yeah, it's just makes you feel like you can be your true authentic self. One
Mhm.
phone call with one of my best friends or with you, one phone call a day is good enough for me to feel like I tapped
Who
into
you are.
my real self. Yeah,
Yeah.
who I am. And it's very therapeutic, it is very therapeutic. So even like that, making that effort of like revealing who you are to these new people in your lives, that's also an invisible labor that you put into connection,
I
because
mean, yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
know, they don't see the internal work that I'm doing on myself to
To
present who
reintroduce
I am to
yourself.
them, to
Yeah. Yeah.
reintroduce myself. وعن جد, it was such a struggle. If I think about it, it really was such a struggle to reintroduce who I was.
Yeah.
um and so I just think it's a very cool thing when you think about how your past can affect you, how nostalgia can really like heal you in some ways as well.
Yeah.
It's very healing too,
It is very healing. But you know what's also how it can also play in adult friendships or the new friendships that you're forming in your life. And I always think about this because it's really important. First of all, we all need to understand everyone, we're basically the same humans going through the same thing in just a different way or at a different time in our
Yeah,
lives, right? It's
yeah,
just we're all going through the motions as well. So
yeah,
one thing that I
yeah,
always think about or tell myself when I meet somebody new is there's always something that you can connect on, right? It might be far-fetched now or you might not know what it is now, but there's always something that you can connect with that individual.
yeah,
Like I met Lisa's colleague's wife when I was pregnant, and she was
yeah,
pregnant at the same time, and we're at different stages in our life. She has a child that's a bit older as well, and I looked at her at the end of the dinner and I'm like, I feel like I've known you forever, you know? And it's just because
yeah,
we're always looking for that little piece of, okay, what's the one thing that can connect us, right? What
yeah,
can we both relate to? It's not
yeah,
just, okay, now we're going through pregnancy at the same time, but what's something else? Let's talk about,
yeah,
like you said, your childhood. Let's talk about these things, who you were, who you want to be, for example. And then
yeah,
it's the additional, yeah, I like this person. I want to stay in touch with them. I want to know a bit more about them. Even if you're not speaking on a day-to-day basis, you're
yeah,
still putting in the effort. A message here and there, a picture on Instagram.
yeah,
You had a conversation with your friend's friend, and then you saw something that reminded you of them. Just send it to them. Just share it. I think at this point, we're in our 30s, right? It's no longer about I want to talk to you. I wait for you to call me. No, I'm the type of person that's going to make the effort because we're not kids anymore, right? I'll make the effort to have a conversation with you, to call you, to pick up the
yeah,
phone. مش
yeah.
لأنه هي ما عم تحكيني ما رح أحكيها or whatever. And this again is with established friendships because obviously some new friendships you're
it's
like, yeah,
it's with the people that you choose that you want to put in an
Yeah,
effort, but it's also with the people who choose to put an effort with you as well. Like it
yeah,
also has to be reciprocated, that you also feel that love, you know? It's not like
yeah,
it's not to ask for anything, and some people might be busier than others or have like more things on their plate, totally understandable. But it's about, you know, just that reciprocal effort once in a while. Like if I'm happy to text you 3 out of the 4 times we talk in a month,
yeah.
but like at least let me
As long
see
as you
one
message me back.
time. Yeah, like one
Yeah,
time, let me see, like you think of me and you initiate.
you
So I
initiate it.
think
Yeah,
it's, of course, like for established friendships, but also for friendships that you are establishing. It's like when you choose that this is a person that you really want in your life and you really want to build a connection with, that invisible labor of connection is always going to happen. And it's going to have
yeah,
to be from both sides, you know? And I
yeah,
think another thing is also being transparent, and what you said about we just want to connect with them on some level. I found what helped a lot was me being transparent and sharing these thoughts with my
yeah.
friends and being like, listen guys, we're all learning about each other today. We just met 2 years ago. We're 30-year-old. We're all set in our ways. So we're all learning each other's like triggers and vibes and tones and like everything all at once, all in an environment where it's already all new. So it's
It's
like
all new
we
to
just
all of you.
have to
Yeah,
be we just have to be patient with each other. And I think like being transparent with, again, the people that you can see that these can be the new people who are going to be, who in 20 years I'm going to look back and say, I have so much nostalgia because of these people, and they were truly also part of a new formative years of mine. When you identify these people, the labor is always worth it.
yeah.
As
It's
long
not
as
to
they
say
show
labor
you.
is bad, right? Like when we're saying
Yeah. Oh no,
the
it's not.
invisible labor of connections, it's not to say that it's bad. It's to acknowledge
Yeah.
the fact that today everyone is very busy with their own lives, but
Yeah.
everyone, it's a human need.
For
Connection is a
connect.
human
Yeah.
need. Yes, connection is a human
Yeah.
need. We all need that on some level. Some more than
Yeah.
others. Some are
No.
extroverted. They get their energy from people. Some people are introverted.
Yeah.
They need
Yeah.
some they need some space to recharge, right? It's just to acknowledge the fact that we all are very busy with our lives, regardless of what stage we are in our lives. We're all very busy. We all want to put in the
Yeah.
effort, even if it's just a message that's, hey, how are you? I respond like 2 days later. I've had that going with one of my friends. And then you respond a few days later.
Totally
That is
fine.
still you putting in the effort. That's it's not the labor,
Totally.
it's the effort, right? To have that connection,
Stop.
to maintain that relationship, that friendship, regardless of what you're going through at that point in your life. And of course, neural nostalgia plays a big role in that because you have very fond memories of this individual as well in this friendship. But as we
Yeah.
grow older and as we connect with new people or additional people in our lives, that also builds and that also leads to those mini labors of connections that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because there are
Yeah.
different levels
Exactly.
that you can
And
put.
yeah, and like I said, you're building the next, like you're building for your future self the
Yeah,
next phase of nostalgia that you're gonna have, you know, like,
100%.
and I think that's beautiful that like you're writing a new story for your future self to look back on and just, you know, feel all of these positive things again. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's definitely interesting and we can talk about it for hours, but I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to kind of end our discussion for the week. Um, so, as always, please share all of your thoughts and experiences down below and come right back here for another episode in 2 weeks of Can We Discuss with Yada and Petra. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.